The first time I saw it move under the microscope, I thought the vibration was a glitch in the lens. It wasn't. We called it strain K17, a mutated bacteriophage recovered from permafrost samples in northern Canada. The team had been studying its potential for medical nanotherapy, its ability to invade and repair human cells. On paper, it was the future of regenerative medicine, but in truth, it should have stayed buried. Our lab, Hollowbrook Biogenics, was built inside an old Cold War facility deep beneath the forest. It had no windows, just thick concrete walls and a hum that never stopped. I'd grown used to that sound after 3 years working there, but lately it seemed louder, more alive. By the last week of October, the research had reached a critical phase. We'd begun testing on mammalian tissue samples, mice, then primates. The results were stunning. Regeneration rates unlike anything recorded, dead tissue revived, severed nerves reconnecting. But then the samples started to change. Cell walls thickened, reshaped, spread across mediums they shouldn't have been able to cross. The healing didn't stop, it kept building. On October 31st, we initiated a high containment review. Just 3 of us were on site. Myself, Dr. Leanne Moritz, and our intern, Evan. Everyone else was gone for the long weekend. That's when it began. Leanne was the first to notice. She'd been examining a slide when she whispered, "It's dividing again." I leaned over the microscope. What I saw didn't make sense. The cells weren't just dividing, they were organizing. The pattern was deliberate, geometric, like architecture. "I think it's using the medium as scaffolding," she murmured. "It's constructing something." "Impossible," I said automatically. And then the lights flickered. For a second, the hum of the air systems faltered, and I felt something subtle, a vibration in the floor, almost like breathing. When the power stabilized, the petri dish was empty. The organism was gone. We locked down the lab. No one in or out. Leanne initiated containment protocol while I checked the airflow systems. Evan sat at the workstation, pale and shaking. "I think it went into the vent," he whispered. That made no sense. But when I opened the grill cover, a faint residue glistened on the metal, slick, opalescent, and pulsing faintly in the dark. We sealed the duct with epoxy, but by midnight it didn't matter. It started with Evan. He said he felt hot, dizzy, thought maybe the stress was getting to him. His nose was bleeding. Within 10 minutes, he was vomiting. Leanne and I rushed him to the isolation room, but his skin was already changing. Tiny red lines spread across his arms like veins drawn with ink. Beneath his skin, something moved, rippling under the surface like fish beneath water. He screamed once, long and raw, before his jaw locked. His teeth began to press outward, not falling out, but pushing through. The tissue around them tore open, and he made this awful gurgling sound, half sob, half hum. Leanne backed away, shaking. "What's happening to him?" "The cells," I said. "It's integrating." His body convulsed again, then went still. And then, impossibly, he stood up. It wasn't Evan anymore. His skin had a waxy sheen, and beneath it I could see veins that weren't veins. They pulsed with color, faintly luminous, crawling outward like roots. His eyes were blank but aware, tracking us with an alien calm. He tilted his head. When he opened his mouth, the sound that came out wasn't human. It was a wet, resonant vibration, almost harmonic. Leanne grabbed the incinerator control. I didn't stop her. The containment room burst into light. Evan's figure writhed, blackening, the hum growing louder until it was all I could hear. When the flame shut off, nothing was left but a charred residue clinging to the glass. We stared at it in silence, and then we realized the hum hadn't stopped. It was coming from the walls. We traced the sound to the ventilation system. When we removed the next panel, I saw the impossible again. Filaments growing along the ducts, branching and splitting like veins, glowing faintly red. The organism had spread. It was alive in the infrastructure. Leanne began to panic. "We have to sterilize the building." "Not possible," I said. "The failsafe won't trigger with us inside." "Then we go," she said. But when we reached the elevator, it was dead. The keypad showed an error message I'd never seen. "Bioseal active, quarantine engaged." We were sealed in. By 2 a.m., the air was thick. The smell of ozone and iron filled every breath. I could feel static under my skin, a faint tingling that moved with my pulse. Leanne started coughing up blood. She looked at me through the visor of her containment mask, eyes wide. "It's airborne." The generator lights dimmed, flickered, and then turned red. I heard the ventilation fans stop. The hum deepened, now rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Leanne staggered, tearing off her gloves. Her fingers were swelling, skin splitting open in neat symmetrical lines. She screamed, clutching her arm as something thin and glistening began pushing through. It wasn't bone, it was something new. I tried to help, but she fell backward, convulsing. Her skin shimmered, blistered, and then hardened into a translucent shell that cracked open like a chrysalis. What came out wasn't Leanne. I ran, through the corridors, through the chemical storage, anywhere but there. But everywhere I turned, I saw the same thing. Growth spreading along the walls, curling across lights and pipes, blooming like coral in slow motion. It pulsed in time with the hum, alive and patient. When I reached the communications terminal, I tried to send a distress call. The message went through, but as soon as I hit transmit, the screen flickered and displayed one line of text I didn't type. "We are becoming." I don't know how long I've been down here now. The clock stopped. My skin itches constantly, and my vision blurs in waves. I think it's inside me, too. Sometimes, I hear voices in the hum. Leon, Evan, even my own. They whisper from the vents, from the floor, from behind the walls. I've locked myself in the cold storage unit, hoping the low temperature will slow it down. My reflection in the freezer door doesn't look like me anymore. My eyes are red, and something moves under my cheekbones when I talk. If anyone finds this recording, don't open the facility. Burn it. Burn the whole forest. Because this isn't a virus. It's evolution. And it's still growing. Outside, I can hear the wind shifting. The metal walls are creaking. It's Halloween night again. And something out there is humming, the same sound from the vents, calling to me. Halloween night. The facility was never meant to stay open this late. I was the only one who didn't leave when the clock hit 7. The others, Dr. Weiss, Hamilton, the interns, they'd gone home, claiming family plans, parties, or just fatigue. But I stayed because someone had to monitor the culture chambers. We were on the edge of something extraordinary, or so we kept telling ourselves. We called it Project Harvest. It started as a simple experiment in regenerative biology, a method of accelerating cell repair using reprogrammed stem cultures. The goal was noble enough: replace damaged organs, reverse degenerative diseases. But the deeper we went, the more the cells began to act differently. They didn't just heal, they adapted, and then they started remembering. The building was silent except for the hum of the refrigeration units and the faint whir of the air filtration system. I walked down the main corridor, fluorescent lights flickering over the sterile white walls. My ID badge beeped weakly as I passed each security door. Lab 3 was at the end of the hall, behind a set of reinforced glass panels. Inside, 7 incubation tanks glowed faintly blue in the dark, filled with fluid thick as syrup. Inside each tank floated a pulsing network of tissue, our harvests. They looked like tangled webs of muscle and sinew, except for the thin strands of neural filaments that had begun branching through the samples like vines. Each week they grew faster. Each week their electrical activity patterns became less random. And last week, one of them responded to external stimuli. It had blinked when we shined a light across its containment field. I sat down at the console, logging the night data. Temperature stable, pH within tolerance, neural activity higher than normal. I frowned. The readings were oscillating in rhythmic pulses, 10 seconds apart, precise and steady. Not random at all. It looked almost like breathing. I leaned closer to the monitor. The waveform trembled, then steadied again. Something was influencing it, or it was influencing itself. I pulled up the remote imaging camera for Chamber 4. The tissue mass floated silently, pale veins faintly glowing beneath the fluid. Then I saw it, just for a second. The mass flexed. A shiver rolled through its surface, like something beneath it was trying to move. I blinked. The motion stopped. I rewound the feed. Nothing. Just stillness. Maybe the temperature drop in the room caused the liquid to contract. Maybe fatigue was catching up to me. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something inside the tank was aware of me. It was nearly midnight when the first alert came through. Alert. Neural interference detected. Chamber 4, the screen filled with a scrolling wall of numbers. Electrical interference spiked through the EEG readings, patterns emerging like fingerprints. They weren't just random firings. They were structured. I watched in disbelief as the signal began to form recognizable frequency clusters, patterns that looked eerily similar to human cortical waves. Language, memory, recognition. "No," I whispered, "that's not possible." Then the intercom crackled. It was silent at first, just static, but underneath it I heard something faint, wet, organic, a heartbeat. I ripped off my headset and spun toward the intercom panel. The lab was empty. I was alone. The heartbeat grew louder. One by one, the containment tanks began to tremble. The fluid inside vibrated as if struck by sound waves. Then all at once, the lights went out. The emergency generators kicked in seconds later, bathing the lab in a dim red glow. I turned back toward the tanks. The silhouettes inside them were moving. The harvests pulsed and writhed, flexing their tissue masses against the glass. Then I realized something horrifying. The activity wasn't random anymore. Every movement was synchronized. Pulse, pause, pulse, pause, like a heartbeat shared between all 7. I backed toward the door, but the security lock had sealed automatically during the outage. My ID scanner was dead. "Manual override," I muttered, fumbling with the panel. My fingers shook. A wet sound echoed through the lab. Not from the speakers this time. It came from inside the tanks. The fluid was bubbling now, rippling from within as if something was pressing outward. Then a loud crack split the air. One of the tank panels fractured, fluid spilling in a thick, gelatinous wave onto the floor. The tissue mass slumped out with it, pale and glistening, twitching like a fish out of water. I froze. Every instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. The mass shuddered again. A thin, quivering tendril uncoiled from its surface, feeling the air like a blind animal. It turned toward me. It shouldn't have been possible. It had no eyes, no mouth, no defined anatomy. And yet I felt its focus settle on me like a spotlight. The heart monitor continued beeping steadily in the background, but not from any machine I recognized. It was coming from the organism itself. I could hear it inside my chest. My pulse began to sync with it. For a moment I was frozen, staring, breathing in shallow gasps, as the creature dragged itself closer, leaving streaks of glistening biofluid across the floor. Then, as if sensing my intent to move, it stopped. The heartbeat slowed. Something clicked inside my skull, like static bursting behind my eyes, and I heard it. Not with my ears, with my mind. "Why did you leave us in the dark?" I stumbled backward, crashing into the counter. The words weren't words at all. They were impressions, sensations, neural signals shaped into thought. The organism shivered again. Its tendrils spread outward, connecting with the spilled fluid from the other chambers. Then, through the dim red light, I realized what it was doing. It was merging them. The remaining tanks quivered, glass cracking as the entities inside began to move in unison, all drawn toward the ruptured one like iron to a magnet. A slow, unified motion of muscle and nerve and memory. The air was filled with the sound of thick, wet suction and rhythmic thudding. I didn't know what would happen when they joined, but every cell in my body screamed that I couldn't be here to witness it. The door override finally responded to my desperate jabs. I shoved it open and bolted down the hallway. The fluorescent lights above flickered wildly now, power grid failing. Behind me, I could hear metal collapsing, tank glass shattering, something heavy dragging across the tile. When I reached the stairwell, I risked one glance back. Through the lab's viewing window, I saw it rising. A single mass, towering, formless, and heaving with breath. Neural filaments glowed faintly along its surface like veins of light. Then it stopped moving, almost peacefully. The red emergency lights faded. For a heartbeat, the world was utterly silent. Then the fire alarms began to scream. The building burned for hours. That's what the official report said anyway. An electrical malfunction, faulty refrigeration units, all tissue samples destroyed. They never explained why the data servers were wiped clean, or how my EEG readings were found saved locally on my personal drive, showing the same rhythmic pulse that matched all 7 neural cultures. I told them I didn't know what happened, and maybe I don't. Sometimes, late at night, I still feel that pulse in my chest, 10 seconds apart, precise and steady. Every Halloween it gets a little stronger. And last night, when I turned on my home monitor, I saw something glowing faintly on the feed, something that looked like tissue. The log file timestamp read October 31st, 11:57 p.m. Project Harvest reactivation detected.